We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, sorry. We were trying to pretend to be the Phillies and just not show up. Eric, we were just talking before. Never did I ever think that I'd be sitting here on Friday, October 27th, having the Phillies funeral. Because, God damn it, that's what it felt like. It was, I felt like I was living in some like alternative universe. Like it was like, all right, you know, the world that I feel like we're living in right now is very similar to the Hill Valley of Back to the Future Part 2, where the casino comes in and just ruins the town. Except in this case, the Phillies played the role of the funeral. And I don't have a whole lot of words. Mad, angry, sad, disappointed, frustrated. But most of all, just pissed because you lost to an inferior opponent. And you know, last year was a little easier to swallow. You knew that you were going up against a juggernaut in the Astros, and you got the pennant, you got to the World Series. But as great a season as they had, and as many memorable moments that happened in the season, in the postseason, this team is going with. There's no end of the year T-shirt. There's no NLCS champs giveaway next year. There's no pennant. There's no flag. There's nothing. You're walking away with nothing. Kind of like us. Talk to me here.
Yeah, this one hurts. You said it. Last year it was one thing, kind of playing with house money. You made it to a certain point. You make it all the way to the World Series. You're playing a really good team in the Astros. It hurt. You know, the Alvarez home run will kind of live rent-free in my head forever. However, I still, could take solace in the fact that, were they really supposed to be there last year? They played above where they were supposed to, and it was a lot of fun. This year was a lot of fun until earlier this week, right? I mean, we left off after talking about the NLDS, and our predictions were Phillies in 5, Phillies in 6.
Yeah.
And after game 2, I'm like, well, crap, are we both gonna be wrong? Is it gonna be 4? And then I don't know what happened on that plane out to Arizona, but the switch flipped and everything just went away. I mean, it's almost like watching. It's tale of two teams here. You have games 1 and 2. It's like, okay, I mean, is this Diamondbacks team even supposed to be here? They made the adjustments. Give them all the credit in the world. I still think the Phillies were the better team. They didn't adjust. The Diamondbacks did. And you know what? You got to give props and credit where credit's due. And that's the Diamondbacks. They scuffled through everything. They played hard. They played gritty. We didn't. And now here we are. And like you said, it's somber. It's it's an end that I don't think anyone really saw coming, and I don't think anyone was ready for it. I was watching Game 7 thinking, if we lose this game, this is the last Phillies game I'm going to watch, real Phillies game I'm going to watch until March 28th, I think opening day is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I ready for that yet? I'm like, no, absolutely not. Let's get some runs here. Boom hits the home run. I'm like, all right, maybe we're back in this here. And
Right.
it's just, it's disheartening, deflating.
Yeah. I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like, it sucked all the life out of me. I felt, and this might have to be some kind of Twitter poll at some point, but like in the last 12 months, the feeling that I felt, as surface as a Union fan as I am, right? The way that their season ended at the end of the year, losing the championship match in double overtime on a shootout. And then that night, the Phillies lose the World Series on an epic moonshot home run by Alvarez. And then the Super Bowl happens. The Super Bowl ends the way that it does, where you're up 10 at halftime. You lose the lead. You think you have a chance to be able to maybe score some points at the end. You don't. That game ends tragically. The Sixers somehow managed to squander away a lead, very similar to the Phillies. And they lose game 7 by 40. And then this team is up 3-2 coming home. You got to win 1 of 2 at home. And not only did they lose, but they didn't even show up. It was epically bad. And I'm like, I was trying to describe it to my wife. I'm like, all of that happened in less than 12 months.
Yeah, it's certainly been a wild ride. Again though, out of all those things, this one I think like affected me the most. Like I said, the Super Bowl hurt, but then spring training was kind of right after it, and so I kind of had that kind of in the back of my mind. So it's like, all right, cool, new Philly season starting. I can kind of forget about that. Here, the Eagles are playing well. It's nice, but we still got some time till the playoffs. A lot of things can happen. The Sixers, I don't really care right now. I'm going to be honest. The front office is a complete mess. Has there been a normal offseason since prior to the Hinkie era? I don't know. It seems like every year there is some nonsense that goes on with them. I don't want to make this a Sixers podcast here, but it's just like there's nothing to really like. I just feel like there's a big void right now. Sundays, okay, once a week you have the Birds. Flyers are playing well. That's a plus we can talk about.
Listen, it's I'll take it where I can get it right at this point. I was thinking to myself as I'm watching game 1 of 82 last night with the Sixers, and I'm like, it would not be more apropos in this town if like somehow they figure out a way to like make a run, like on a year where like the expectations are as low as they possibly can be. But and the Flyers are playing well. I saw Mike's tweet last night. Like the Flyers are going to somehow manage to play themselves into the playoffs at this point. Like, the Flyers are playing with house money. I have zero expectations, so I don't have any anticipation of getting hurt. But let's just jump into this, right? Because game 1 and 2 at home, the vibes coming out of after game 2 are like immaculate. Like they could not be any better, could not have felt any higher. So talk to me about how the series started, game 1 and 2.
I mean, you said it. Like, it was just it couldn't have really started out any better. You get your good pitching matchups there. You're able to take out their top 2 guys who you're kind of worried about, right? You get to Gallen, you get to Kelly. Your 2 guys, Wheeler and Nola, do what they're supposed to do. You get Ranger Suarez, who, is pretty much unflappable out there and doesn't pitch a bad game by any means. But yeah, games 1 and 2, you have those in hand. The offense is still hitting. It was just like everything was kind of clicking, right? And I don't know where that changed. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me I'm not really someone who, sweeps in baseball. 3-game sweeps in a regular season are already difficult enough to do.
Yeah.
I would like after game 2, I'm thinking there's a chance we could sweep this team. Because we had 2 pitching advantages going into games 3 and 4, right? We had Suarez against Fott, and we had then the bullpen games, right?
The bullpen game, right?
And I'm like, so we have to win one of those, you would think, until all of a sudden the offense just decides to not show up. So I think, after game 2, you're leaving, you're waiting for that travel day. I was so excited for game 3. Just could not wait for it. It was a bit of a letdown, but sweeps really hard to come by. Okay, whatever. Go back out and get them tomorrow.
Right.
And unfortunately, that just never really transpired. That whole go get them tomorrow attitude just never really came through on the field. And it was really reminiscent of early in the season, back in May, where this team's just floundering to get hits. You're winning games, but it's only because your starters are giving up 2 runs. Your offense is somehow mustering up 3, and your bullpen's shutting everyone down. That's how it was kind of going in the beginning. And I'm sure we'll talk about where blame can be placed later on, so I'm not going to get into that right now. But I mean, the pitching for the most part, I feel did its job. Obviously there's a couple exceptions there, but the starting pitching, I mean, Nola gave up those 2 home runs, and he had a rough second inning in game 6. Suarez, had that rough 5th inning. But the pitching overall did its job, and there's not one game that series where the Diamondbacks put up enough runs where we should not have been able to win with the offense that we have.
100%, right? Game 1, and listen, we talk about the feeling in the ballpark. Game 1, right? You could not have scripted a better start, right? The Schwarber leadoff home run that he hits 460 feet, and then 2 batters later, Harper hits the one 437, right? Hits it almost over the bullpen. Castellanos comes up in the second. Little did we know that was going to be his last hit this season.
Of the entire season.
They were able to jump on top of them early, right? They get the 5-0 lead. Now credit to the Diamondbacks, right? They claw back. They get the Perdomo home run. And then, they get the sacrifice, but it never got past 5-3, right? You beat Zach Allen in a game at home that you knew you had to have. And then, you just, there's no way that then you come in to game 2, and game 2, they jump all over Merrill Kelly. That game, is 10-0. And it's they really don't kind of jump on them until the 6th, right? In the 6th, they drop 4 on them in the 6th, 4 on them in the 7th, and then it's it's kind of lights out at that point. But this to me is kind of where the wheels fell off. And I don't know if you caught it, but right at the beginning of game 3, as they're doing all the introductions, they talked about how the Phillies changed up their pregame routine and didn't take batting practice. And that to me was a red flag. I'm you haven't played in Arizona in since was it early June?
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah, I was looking at the schedule actually earlier today, and I know they played the Diamondbacks at home, I think in July. I forget when they played.
In July, but
there,
and they played well out there, but you look at that ballpark is, I kept yelling the whole time that when throughout those 3 games out there, I'm like fuck you and your cavernous fucking ballpark. This thing is fucking huge. And everything, the fly balls just go there to die. And they made mention to it throughout all 3 games, how making comments about how certain balls would be home runs in 17 other ballparks.
Other stadiums,
but that one thing early on just kind of hit me it just kind of made me go, really? It made me look sideways at why would you switch up the routine? I know because it's not like you played back to back. You had the day off. Why not continue to get those guys the everyday routine? And I don't know if that was we're on a run here. We're coming off a game 10-0 where, we can we're putting the ball in play. We're hitting the balls in the gap. We're making good contact. that to me just set up a red flag that, like, I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, some people were speculating that it's because, they flew in or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's a travel day there for a reason, right? So I don't know. Yeah, baseball's such a game of routine and superstition and all that, and I don't get not doing it. I haven't heard I haven't heard any actual like reason or really anyone question Thompson or anything why they didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was like a level of almost like cockiness. Or if it was just, hey, these guys are playing, they've been playing hard. Let's give them a break. They're seeing the ball well, as well as they could have been at that time, and then see what happens. So I don't know, how much that played into it or not, but I mean, it certainly could be a thing, like you said. Like I just said, the routine is such a big thing in baseball, and usually when things aren't going well, that's when you switch up the routine, not when things are going well.
Right. But like, so you go into game 3, right? Game 3, they end up losing 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game that, Kimbrel gives up the single to Marte in the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
But they, outside of the Harper stealing home, they get shut out. Like they this is where the offense started to die, because in that game, right, you're not gonna win a game with 3 hits in the playoffs. Like they had opportunities to manufacture runs and they didn't. This was the start to me of like leaving guys on base, leaving guys with, there were so many opportunities in those 3 games in Arizona where you had guys in scoring position with less than 2 outs and you could never manufacture those runs. And like you said, like, credit to the Diamondbacks. They battled that whole game, right? The Phillies put up the 1 run, and it's nothing until the 7th. The Phillies put up the 1 run with Harper. Now, the shame of it is that they give it right back. They give it right back in the bottom of the 7th. And then this to me in this game, you have Suarez that he goes 5 1/3. What were your feelings about how they started to manage the bullpen in this game?
So just kind of knowing, like, playoff baseball is different than regular season baseball. So I know that they're often going to take guys out, early. We saw Thompson do it with Suarez in the Braves series, right? In the division series where he wants it. So I think he always goes through it with a game plan, and whether it's his, it might be to a fault, but he trusts his guys, right? Now I know the biggest question mark in that game was bringing Kimbrel again, bringing Kerkering for a second straight game. That I think was the biggest questionable move, because he's never pitched back-to-back days. I don't know why in the NLCS that's the time you try it.
In a crucial game, like in a game that in a swing game in a big spot. And I know that his stuff has been electric. It was like, I didn't have a problem with bringing him in. I just had a problem with the fact that, and it's, you don't want to question the balls and strikes and the play calling, but to let him throw almost, I think it was 9 or 10 straight breaking balls
and no strikes.
And never think like, hey, this dude can pump high 90s gas. How about we just get him right with a fastball?
Mm-hmm.
I would have been okay if at any point in time he just gasses it up. If he gets if one of the dudes from Arizona lets one fly, I'll live with that. But to let Kerkering go and to let him throw, I know that's his go-to pitch, but those pitches weren't even close. Like, it's not like there were like some missed calls. All those breaking balls were they were in the opposite batter's box, and he's in there for what amounts to 3 at bats, gives up 3 hits, gives up the 1 run. I mean, and then the most amazing part about that game to me is when Alvarado comes in with the bases loaded and gets out of it on 3 pitches.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the difference, right? I mean, Alvarado's been there, Kerkering hasn't, but that's the thing. Like, I don't know why he's out there back-to-back days. I don't know who. I was talking about this, the next day. Obviously, it's JT calling the pitches back there, right? They have a game plan, but I mean, you would think that JT, with the experience he has, would either go out there and tell Kerkering, listen, I'm putting down a 1. You're going to throw a 1. That something had to change there, and it just didn't. I mean, it was flat the game before. The breaking ball was flat the game before. It wasn't breaking. Then he had no control on it that game. And you're right. I mean, his fastball is good enough to get guys out. I don't understand what the plan was there. So that was like that was the questionable move to me. Bringing Kimbrel back out. Okay, Kimbrel, I think probably just hit a wall at the end of the season and he has taken so much flack right now from Phillies fans, and deservedly so. He lost some big games there. However, are we where we're at without Kimbrel this season? I don't know. I mean, he pitched so well all season. He was an all-star. He pitched so well this season for us. So I get Thompson's going to trust his veteran guys, go back to him.
I don't have a problem with bringing Kimbrel in this scenario.
It's his execution at that point, yeah.
Right, and the second that you see, you didn't even get a chance, right? Because he gives up the 2 hits, the 1 run, and that's it. Right, he doesn't even see the third batter.
Right.
My problem. So like with this game just I flushed it. I was like, you know what? That's a baseball loss.
Mm-hmm.
I question the Kerkering bringing him in. But the problem that I have with Kimbrel and the decision to bring him in is not in that game, but it's to bring him in when they bring him in, when he's struggling, when they bring him back in the next game, in game 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this game, so game 4 took like 400 hours to play.
With all those pitching changes. Yeah, it was insane.
With all the pitching changes that happened. I just that game to me was the most frustrating game out of them all. Right, they lose that game, 6-5. Credit to the Diamondbacks for that game, for to be able to get through a bullpen game and throw. I think they threw 9 guys.
Yeah, it was almost everyone. Yeah.
And the Phillies got to a point where it was they had 4 guys left. They had Lorenzen, they had Taijuan Walker, and they had Kimbrel and Alvarado. And my issue in this game was you let. I think it was a smart move to start Christopher Sanchez. Where I didn't understand was the piggyback. He pitches 2 1/3, and then you go right to your bullpen. So
and not
now,
even the long guys, just straight to the meat of your guys there. So I agree with that. I don't know, like if you're going to start the guy, because now you just made it a bullpen game for yourself too.
Correct.
So that was frustrating.
So like that game, that to me was like I'm in the 6th inning watching Sir Anthony pitch, and I'm going, how are we going to get to the 9th?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Like one of these guys is going to end up having to throw 2 innings. Like one of these, someone is going to have to do something extraordinary. But that's what I thought. Like, especially in that scenario where he's only pitching 2 1/3, right? You can bring Taijuan Walker in. Christ, he hasn't pitched since the regular season. He doesn't make an appearance in the whole playoffs. You can bring Michael Lorenzen in. You had guys that you could have piggybacked Christopher Sanchez and let him get so that you don't tax your bullpen, so that you're not. And when I say get in the bullpen, right, get into your bullpen guys, right? Because you had guys that were specifically on this roster for that specific reason, to be those long guys, to be those guys that if something bad happens, you bring those in. I remember you talking about it on the last show, right? If we see Lorenzen or we see Taijuan Walker, something happened on either end, right? It's either a blowout and you're getting guys work and letting the other guys rest, or something bad happened early and you're not going to waste arms.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is where the wheels fell off. Because like now you're just you go Hoffman for 1 2/3, you go Strom, you go Dominguez for 1 1/3, you go Soto, Kickering, Kimbrel, Alvarado. Like you didn't give yourself the best opportunity, and that's a game where the offense isn't horrible, right? They score 5 runs, they're up 5-3 or 5-2, go at 5-3, right? 5-3 going into the 8th, and then you bring Kimbrel back in. Now, listen, I know that you didn't have the arms to be able to like not bring him in. I just don't understand bringing him in at that point, because that to me, right? Because Thompson has been I'm bringing these guys in the highest leverage spots.
Mm-hmm.
You have a kid who's been electric in this series and really been able to put the bat on the ball, and that's not a high leverage spot when you're up 2 with 2 guys on and the go ahead runs at the plate.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because earlier in, I don't know if it was this series or it was the Braves series, I forget, but Thompson made a comment about managing the bullpen, using your best guys when you need them, because there's no guarantee you're going to need them later, right? If someone else gives up those runs, you don't get to them. He kind of went back and did the opposite there, right? When you're in a higher leverage situation, he has Alvarado sitting there and brings in Kimbrel for that situation. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, that was toward the bottom of the order, right? Is that
Alec, when Alec Thomas homers, homers, Lourdes Gurriel scores,
right,
and then Corbin Carroll.
Okay,
so you're right. That was the bottom of the order.
It was, but right, the problem was he didn't get through the bottom of the order. He ended up getting back into the top then. So it didn't work because the order flipped, right? So Thompson's idea, I think, was to have Kimbrel get through the 8th, right, and then have Alvarado face the top of the lineup. Corbin Carroll being the lefty, I get that move, but the problem is Kimbrel didn't do his job, so that now makes the move look that much worse. Again, hindsight's always 20/20. I feel like bullpen management is one of those things that's, especially in a playoff game, it's under a microscope so much more for who are you going to use against which matchup and all that stuff. So I don't begrudge Thompson for having to make that decision, but when you have your better guy sitting out there, you trust him to get it to the 9th, right? And that's it kind of backfired. It backfired there. So
yeah, and their bullpen in their bullpen game pitched really well, right? They did their job, and the back end of that bullpen pitched really well throughout this entire series. Now they somehow managed on Saturday, they sneak one out, right? They win 6-1. They managed to put 9 hits together. This is the second time that they beat Zach Gallen in this series. And if you would have told me, Eric, in a postseason where they beat Zach Gallen twice, they beat Spencer Strider twice, and nothing happens, I would have. If you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have told you you're writing your ticket for the World Series. Like that, if you can manage to take those 2 guys out, but they chase them, right? They chase them early, right? You get the Stott single early, then you get the epic in the 6th. You get Schwarber and Harper with those again monster shots when
2 shots,
they're doing everything they can to be able to, try to pitch around those guys and not let those guys hurt you. Schwarber's home run goes 471. Harper's home run goes 455. Like just mammoth shots, no doubt about it. And you get the Real Muto home run late, right? And the vibes are back, right? The vibes are back because you're up 3-2 going home. Not a scenario that we thought, right? We thought maybe, with the way that the series started, they would be able to take 2 out of 3. They don't, right? And they come home on Monday. And again, we're the town is feeling itself. We're talking about, right, the Monday night's the closeout game. Go grease the poles at Cotman and Frankfurt. Like, everybody get ready. Monday or Tuesday is going to be a party. And this is, to me, the feeling that I felt. I won't forget the feeling that I felt in terms of how let down I felt after game 4, because that was the game that I felt like you really let get away. And you let them get back into the series. You could have been going up. You could have been up 3-1 with a chance to put them away at home. And you let them back in the series. You let them feel themselves. And you created a scenario where you had to come home. And the pressure was all on the Phillies going into game 6 at home. Now, that was a game you were down there for
I was down there for game 6. Yep. And I'll tell you what, going in, vibes were high, right? Like, coming off of game 5, this is where the difference is. Like, game 4, I felt it, but after game 5, I'm like, all right, we're back. We have a pitching advantage. We have home field advantage. I'm just like, to me, we're going to win one of these games, right? I was so confident about it. I think everyone else kind of was too. But that second inning, game 6, I mean, I was lucky enough to get to a lot of postseason games this year, and that was the worst I've ever seen the crowd. I mean, the wind was just taken out of the sails, and it was really hard for them to get it back. Yeah, and just nothing really happened. And that's really where after game 6, that's when I'm like, oh crap, we're in trouble. The confidence I saw, on Twitter and heard on WIP and stuff like that about winning game 7, I'm like, can we slow our roll a little bit here? I mean, if these guys don't hit, we're not winning. And they just didn't. I mean, it was so infuriating being there and watching that. And now from where I was sitting, balls and strikes, tough to see. So, but what I did notice was the chases and watching at bats from Turner and Castellanos, who gave us so much early in the postseason. So, I'm talking trash on them in this game and game 7, but overall, like, we're not where we're at without those guys. But at the same time, like, you guys are big game players. You need to act like it. And Turner had one of the most uncompetitive at bats in a postseason that I mean, honestly, he looked like you might as well just send Ranger Suarez up, or it was Aaron Nola that night. You might as well send Aaron Nola up there. Three pitches, I think 3 swings, and not one competitive swing. And it wasn't even like it was I'm sorry, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the at bat where Schwarber had just walked.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So Schwarber just walks. I'm pretty sure he walks on 4 pitches.
He does, because I was livid.
And all three swings, 1 were non-competitive. 2, the pitches were in the other batter's box. Like, they weren't even close pitches. And I'm looking at it going, like, that's a position where that they are intentionally walking Schwarber. They're not going to let him hurt you. And they put everything. They came back to Philadelphia with the game plan that said, we are not going to let Harper and Schwarber hurt us. We're going to put this all on Trey Turner and all on Alec Bohm. And those guys, outside of the one Bohm home run in game 7, like, those guys shriveled in the biggest moment when you needed them. They just couldn't get it done. It was bad, right? And this game, they end the game, 6 hits but 1 run. If I remember correctly, this was another game they had. They had guys and runners. They had runners in scoring position. They had opportunities to kind of get back in the game, and they just don't. They don't. And it was a game where Nola gets chased early, right? He leaves 4 and a third, but gives up the 4 earned runs, and they just never never got into this game at all. And then game 7, right? And game 7 is like, not a position that anybody ever thought we'd be in. Not with this team, not the way that games 1 and 2 start. And you get Suarez to pitch early, right? But He gives up the one that the other thing that I noticed that the Diamondbacks did, right? When they come back here for 6 and 7, guys get on base, they're running, they're being
running,
super
yep.
aggressive, they're moving, they're playing small ball, and they get the one run early, right? They did a great job at putting all the pressure on the Phillies early. The same thing that we said that we had to do, right? To get the Diamondbacks, get on them early, and the bats just never show up, right? They only get 5 hits in this game. Their last hit, if I remember correctly, is a Schwarber double, the Schwarber double in the 5th. So they don't get a hit after the 5th inning. And they just never, as close as the game is, right? The game's 4-2. You had an opportunity, especially late. You were going to have 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9 in the 8th and 9th inning. You needed one guy to get a hit to be able to get Schwarber one more at bat. Out of those 6 at bats, you needed one guy to get on, one guy to work a walk, one guy to get a hit, one guy to do anything. And they just looked, this was a game that they looked tight. They looked tight from the start. They looked like they were all trying to hit home runs. And, there was a Jason Stark stat about the exit velocity from Harper, the one fly out that he has, that like all of his at bats with exit velos that it was like plus 700 something. He was hitting like 780 something on balls that he hits, and it lands. He comes within feet of pretty much doing the same exact thing he did to send the Phillies to the World Series last year. I can't fathom the fact that like you turn it up in the biggest moment, and it is hard to think about criticizing guys like Castellanos and guys like Harper and Turner, because how well they played early in the postseason. They're up through game 2. There was not a whole lot of bad things you could say about them, but these last 2 games left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was you had to take one at home, and they couldn't do it. And the most frustrating thing here is the offense. You can talk about what happened in games 3 and 4, all you want, but to me, it boils down to you had the opportunity was given back to you. The ball was now in your court, and they failed. Right, the discipline completely gone. I mean, Castellanos looked like he looked last year. Turner looked like he looked back prior to August, right? And it's just like, what are we doing? I mean, I'm guessing they're pressing, right? I mean, they were good hitters up until that point. The pressure probably got to them. They're like, crap, we fumbled this a little bit, and they're trying to swing for the fences. The difference is the ball is not going to travel as far in October as it would in August and September for these guys. So it's you got to be able to be able to play baseball without just hitting home runs. Now this team's built to do it, and you notice when they're hitting home runs, they're rolling, right? Yeah. But you got to manufacture runs other ways, and it just felt like. And we talked about this at various points during different shows of the season, right? Where they're going through, there's ebbs and flows. There always is with baseball. But there'd be times where it's like, okay, we're down 3 runs. Feels like, we might as well be down 10. We have no shot, right? Then there's other times we're down 5 runs, and it's like, the way our offense is going, let's go. We have 2 more at bats here. Let's get these runs back. And it would happen. This again, game 6, after watching game 6 and then watching game 7, it ultimately felt like, you're right. At one point it was 4-2. We're down 2 runs. And I'm like, I don't foresee us being able to come back from this the way we're approaching these at bats. It was some of the worst approaches I have seen. And to me, the offense lost us this series.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. The way, and the statistics, they're hard to read, right? The 2 they're in the last, so they come home with the 3-2 lead. In those 2 games, they score 3 runs total.
2 for 17 with runners in scoring position.
You're literally reading the you're reading the
That is
stat
a
off
number that I read it. I can't tell you how many times because people kept arguing with me that it was Thompson and the bullpen that blew it. Yeah, exactly. And so
I'm literally reading it.
I have been reciting that stat nonstop because Thompson might have made some bad decisions. Kimbrel might have blown a lead, but guess what? Ultimately, it came down to the fact that you couldn't score runs with guys on base, and that's something they were doing. And it just came down to plate discipline and just a complete lack of focus at the plate. It was maddening.
You lost in this series. You lost 2 games to a kid who's in his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, electric stuff, great poise. But that's inexcusable for a team that is probably out of the 3 teams that were left out. After the Astros get eliminated. You're probably on paper the best team out of all 3 of them team. But in those 2 games, Castellanos, Turner, Harper, 0 for 23. You're not going to win. You're not going to win games with Brandon Marsh, as great as he was in this postseason, with Bryson Stott, with Alec Boehm. You're not going to win the games. And Christmas in heaven, Johan Rojas. The most, Eric, in this game, the most unforgivable thing for me, the thing that jumps out in neon is the Rojas at bat in the 4th.
Yep.
He comes up in the 4th, and you saw the pitching coach because they pan to him, right? Because they know it's coming. They walk Marsh, right? Because they're going, Marsh will hurt us. Rojas will get himself out. And to not look at that in a game 7 as a pinnacle point in that game, and not put someone up there that has at least a puncher's chance at throwing a ball anywhere on the field. Right, Rojas is batting. I think it was by that game he was batting like 080, 089 or something like that.
It was below 1, yeah.
And to not put someone else in there, right? If that's Christian Pache, you saw Christian Pache later in the game work a walk, pretty impressive at bat for a guy who sat for the last 3 weeks and didn't see game activity the entire time. You had a guy like Jake Cave. Now, Jake Cave has had his moments during the season, but Jake Cave is at least, I'm going to put it in air quotes for everybody that's going to listen later, he's a professional hitter. You had guys there that were there specifically for those moments. And you can tell me all you want about the defensive responsibilities of a guy like Johan Rojas and the ground that he covers, but it's not leaps and bounds from what Christian Pache could have given you. He can cover. They're both really speedy guys.
They're comparable. I mean, their numbers are pretty comparable.
Very. But offensively, he at least will give you a professional at bat. And that to me, Eric, was like when he strikes out, and he strikes out bad, and it looks fucking ugly as hell.
It was horrible.
I literally turned to my wife, and God bless my wife, because I got to give her a huge shout out, because she, on a normal time, could care less about sports. My boss lady sat with me and watched me melt into a puddle throughout this entire series. And I looked at her and I was like, there it is. That moment, that at bat right there, they're going to regret that moment, because up until that point, their offense looked absolutely lethargic through a game and a half of baseball between game 6 and game 7. And I was like, not getting runs in that moment, not getting any runs when you have the bases loaded. And correct me, did they have the bases loaded and 1 out? or was that they had bases loaded with 2 outs?
I think. Oh, I don't know. I was again.
Well,
I'm trying to think of it now too, because I was in the same situation. It actually sounds like our households are very similar. My wife was sitting in the room as well. She actually same thing. Shout out to Allison, because she went to a bunch of the games with us and everything. She watched every game. Now most of it she was fine because I was happy. Right, those last couple games, I feel bad because I was a little angry, but yeah, she put up with it, and eventually, I think last night I finally said to her, "I'm like, you know what? I think I'm finally getting over it." But yeah, I was like blinded by some of this by rage at some point. So that's why I don't remember what the out situation was there.
Well, I just
Rojas.
went back and
was
looked.
just
So
angry.
They had that in that 4th inning, Stott doubled and Bohm scored, but that was far later. So what transpired after that was far later, right? But you had after the Stott double, Real Muto singles to left,
Right.
Stott goes to third, Castellano strikes out, so there was 2 outs.
2 outs, okay.
2 outs, right? Marsh walked, Real Muto is on second, Stott's still on third, and then Rojas strikes out swinging.
Yeah, I mean, and again, with two outs, it makes it maddening, but less maddening than one, I guess. But yeah, and to me, the thing is like, okay, so Rojas, first year here, right? He has not. This is the most games he's ever played. He's never really been a powerhouse offensively, and but to me, not that Cave and Pache realistically had better chances, but I think that also shows you the lack in trust of the depth we have on the bench there. Thinking that, I guess it was early in the game too, and maybe Thompson was trying to play, okay, well, Rojas defensively here, because the problem with Pache and Rojas, both great defensive players, they're both right-handed, and that's kind of that's the snag there. If Pache is left-handed, I think, or even a switch hitter, I think at that point you definitely see obviously see a move. But yeah, I feel bad almost for putting it all on Rojas, but you got to do something there, right? You're in the major leagues, you're there for a reason. But he was way out of his league pretty much the entire postseason. But he was just way overmatched, and yeah, it was just so frustrating. But to me, the problem is the Rojas at bat was bad, but you also now can go back and say, well, your guys who have been there before, who are getting paid the big bucks, also didn't do anything. So to me, that's after having a couple of days to think about it, that's where I'm more upset. I'm more upset at the offense as a whole, but that's certainly an at bat that you look back at and say that could have changed the tide of the game.
100%. And Eric, as I'm just kind of scrolling through and looking back, it's like I tried to erase that game from my memory, but
Me too.
But but in the bottom of the 6th, they go 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 8th and the 9th. So in the last 4 innings, you went 1, 2, 3 in 3 out of the 4 innings.
Yep.
Like you were, and Eric, even into the 9th, I'm still going, they need 1 hit. You got to get 1 guy on.
Yep.
You get 1 guy on, and I'll take my chances with Schwarber and the off chance that they make a mistake and he hits it to fucking Broad Street. Like I'll live with that.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't get it done. And they could have gotten done, and it ends epically. I literally walked up to the TV, turned it off. I literally went outside and sat for like a good 25 minutes. Just sat outside and just like just nothing happening. And I just felt so fucking empty. It felt horrible. Not the way that we thought the season was going to end. Eric, I'm going to play a commercial. Give us a minute. On the back end, we'll talk maybe 10, 15 minutes about the post-game the post-game, not post-game, the postseason press conferences, the stuff we heard from Dombrowski about, and then, we'll put this funeral to bed. So catch us on the back end. We'll be right back.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000-square-foot microbrewery with a 2,500-square-foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer garden in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torin's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great, perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touring.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right. Well, listen, it doesn't end the way we thought it might. They have all the postseason press conferences. Eric, talk to me about what you heard from the players, from Dombrowski, from just the obviously they're not happy with the way that the season ends, but I think I like what I heard from Dombrowski. I like the tone in terms of the importance and the desire to be able to get back to a position where you can put yourself in get with a chance to win the pennant.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that kind of got me through a lot of this is just thinking, okay, it won't be the same exact team next year, but a majority of these guys are coming back, and it's all the ones we want to come back for the most part. There's one I'm going to talk about in a second, but there's definitely that chance to be there. We have good ownership, wants to spend money, willing to do it. I don't really think we need to go out and spend $1 billion this offseason. But I think priority number one going to the offseason, and Dombrowski talked about it, obviously said that mutual interest with Aaron Nola. I know Nola is one of those guys where I've been a huge Nola guy, defender, whatever you want to call it, since, forever, right? I think he came up with the team in 2015 and they stunk. So he kind of was given that title like de facto ace, right? Yeah. I don't think it was ever fair to really think of him as like a Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom type guy, right? He was never projected to be that. He was a solid pitcher, a good pitcher. Now we have Zach Wheeler, who is a bona fide ace. Nola's not. You can't compare the two guys, right? But Nola, if you look at what this season was a down year for him, undoubtedly, right? He had a bad ERA, but when it mattered, he turned it on.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to get worse next year. I think his numbers are going to get better. He's going to, be used to the pitch clock now. He seems to have worked on some mechanics, tweaked a couple things, fixed the slide step so guys aren't running on him as much. And we saw that. So I really think, he needs to be back looking at the rest of this pitching market. Blake Snell is going to ask for an arm and a leg. Other than that, there's really not much else out there who's comparable to Nola and what he can do. The innings he gives you alone should be worth $100 million right there. Then plus the value he gives you in the games he's going to pitch. Did you see the report that the reason that they didn't come to an agreement prior to this season was he was asking for like 8 years, $200 million or something like that?
I did not.
So that came out. I forget. I want to say it was through Phillies Nation or one of the. I think maybe Phillies Nation maybe. And 8 years I think is it's a tall ask from any pitcher.
Especially a guy who's not young anymore, right?
Right.
And I know his job is to make sure that he secures long-term financial stability for his career, and I get that. I do think that he's a guy that, again, we talk about that long-term stability. He's a guy who's been in this organization, came up in this organization, and my whole thing, and I'm on the same page with you in terms of bringing him back, because I don't know who you bring in. I don't know who's the comp that you bring in. Is it a guy like Montgomery from the Rangers? Right? Is that a guy?
You look at track records, though.
He's not an MLB ace,
right?
But the most important thing, what do you need a guy to do throughout the season? You need a dude to eat innings, and he eats innings all throughout the season. And I don't think it's, even though he's going to be one of the better players that'll be available in terms of starting pitching, I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to be able to get it done. And I think the benefit of it, there being mutual interest, I think is a really important thing.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, the average value on his salary, I don't care. It's not my money, right? Like,
no, spend that cigar money.
Exactly. And 8 years, $200 million equates to what, around $25 million a year or something like that, which really isn't bad. My thing is, give him, take the years down, give him 28, 29 a year. I don't care. He's pitched well enough to maybe earn some of that. But I don't see anywhere over
in terms of like a shorter,
more money,
like shorter term, bigger money.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's 30 right now. Give him 5 years, right? I mean, and it's crazy because you remember, like, back in the heyday of 08, 09 with Gillick and Amaro, they would not sign a pitcher for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like we signed Taijuan Walker for freaking 4 years. Like, so Taijuan Walker is, he is what he is. He's gonna be number 4 starter, right? Number 4, number 5, and we saw it this year. Nola's way better than that. Being 30 years old, by 35, I don't see him be, going down to, he's not going to, I think, decrease in value all that much. So pay more, give him the 5 years, and then he might be able to get a, 2 or 3 year deal somewhere else. Because pitching is so valuable right now. Like, there is nothing. Yeah. Look at how many teams don't even have 3 starters. The Braves didn't have enough pitching to get through us. The Diamondbacks didn't. They still did. But they didn't have pitching either. Like, there are so teams that just don't have it. The Dodgers got screwed because they don't have the starting pitching. Yeah. Like, there's good teams out there that are lacking in starting pitching. And it's such a desirable thing right now. Nola can pretty much say there's going to be teams out there. Yeah, I've seen him linked to the Cardinals. I've seen him linked to there's another team that just came up the other day. Braves fans want him right now. I'm seeing on Twitter and stuff like that. And, he's going to be desirable out there. It's him wanting to stay in Philadelphia. Will he take a year or two less to do that? I don't know, but I think, you have to look into that, and that has to be priority number 1. Sign Nola, or the other thing Dombrowski said is likely it's not going to be in the free agent market. You have to trade for someone, but then you trade for someone. Now you're giving up some of those other prospects that you kind of want to hang on to. So I think, I'd rather lose the money, mostly because it's not mine, but
it's not mine. Yeah.
Rather than losing the prospects.
I think what I like is, like, you're going to have to build this roster creatively, right? And as weird as it might sound, Eric, don't underestimate the fact that like just a couple weeks ago, right, he's part of a group of players that announced that they're about to have new children. And do you really want to create that instability in your family at that inflection point too? That might be something that might factor in, that maybe says like, hey, maybe I do a shorter term deal and I go back into free agency in 2 years, in 3 years, and maybe re-enter the market then. But you're going to have to be creative. I think that the dearth of outfield talent that you have might create an opportunity to maybe move a major league ready player now, package whoever, right? Even if you're packaging a guy like Christian Pache, right?
It's got to be Pache or Rojas, I think. Yeah, you're not going to get rid of Marsh, I don't think, at this point. But yeah, it's got to be one of those two.
But you package those guys, or package one of those guys with, maybe some minor league prospects, and you get another starting pitcher. You get like a deal, Eric, similar to the deal that brought Gregory Soto here.
Mm-hmm.
Very like you give up guys at the back end of your bench for a guy that was pivotal in your playoff run, and a guy that came in and was a reliable reliever at the back end of your bullpen. And you compare what you gave up, right? You give up Veerling, and who was the other guy?
Maton. And
two
Johnny
guys
Sands.
that like, wow. Yeah, like I think you're going to have to be creative in terms of that. But the other big thing that comes out of it is, right, the conversation about Harper and how he's going to proceed positionally, in terms of next year and then throughout the course of his, career here. Because I think that we know is drastically going to affect the decision that they make about Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny to me that they're going to ask Bryce, because is Bryce going to say one or the other? I think he's going to be like, what is going to help this team be better? And that's just how Bryce is. Like his goal is to win, and whatever's going to put the Phillies in a better chance to win, I think he's going to be okay with, right? He played well at first base. There were still a couple things at the end of the season, even the postseason, where I'm like, yeah, maybe, he should have underhanded that somewhere, you let someone else get that ball or whatever, but he transitioned pretty seamlessly to that position. There's pros and cons, actually, I think it was something, I don't remember if it was Thompson or Dombrowski saying it, but one of them was saying, everyone thinks, it was Dombrowski saying, everyone thinks first base is such an easy position, but really, I mean, you're diving, you're sprinting to first base, 10, 11 times a game. You're moving every single play, right? Outfield, not that you're not moving, but if you're in right field and the ball's hit the third base and there's no one on, you're maybe moving a little bit to maybe back up on a bit, or the catcher's really doing that. So you're not really moving a whole lot. So I don't know. I think either one, whichever one I think Bryce is going to say, I'll do whatever the team wants me to do. Which is such like a blessing, because I don't know if you saw. Did you see what the Padres are? The Padres are asking Xander Bogaerts to make a move to first base, and remember he's signed as a shortstop. So 280. That what a deal that's going to be. He doesn't want to do it, by the way. So they want Machado at third. They want Kim at short, Cronenworth at second, and Bogaerts at first. So now you got basically this $280 million first baseman who doesn't want to play first base. So I just thank God we have Bryce. And again, I find like he might have a preference, but I really don't think he's going to say, I want to play right field just so you can get Rhys back, or I want to play. Like, he's kind of in a tough spot here because he's friends with Rhys.
Yeah.
If he says first base, Rhys is gone.
Right. You don't want to be in a position to be able to kind of, play judge, jury, and executioner on someone else's career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your initial analysis of it is like spot on. Like, he's going to say, you know what, that's not my decision to make. I'll do whatever's best for the team. And then he's got to put that back on. That is a Dombrowski move. That is a Rob Thompson move. Like, you can't put that on the player to say, I want to play here. Because throughout the course of the season, if they need him to play outfield, he will. If they need him to play first base, he will. If they need him to DH, he will. They know, I mean, he would go out and catch if they let him. Like, he's like, he is that player.
Mhm.
But I think the thing that I'm going back to is like, I look at the two of them comparably defensively, and Bryce Harper in 60 plus games is an upgrade defensively to what Reese Hoskins would give you.
Yeah, probably is.
Your heart of hearts, he comes back. You think they move on?
So again, just thinking like nostalgically, and I've always liked Reese. I've always, again, just like Nola, Reese gets a lot of crap too. I've always liked Reese, but unless he's willing to take like a 1 year, like try it out deal, I don't see there's no point in signing him long term. You just don't know how he's going to recover from that injury. He's another home run or strikeout type guy, which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like one through six of
we
those
got a
guys.
lot of those dudes.
Yeah, we don't need one more of those, I don't think. I feel bad saying it, but like if Bryce is cool playing first base, you go get they need another right-handed bat, and that's apparent to replace Reese. But I just don't see a fit for him if that's the case.
There's just,
I wish him the best.
The way that this roster shook out this year, there's just no spots. There's nothing left in terms of space. You're just out of space. You're out of guys because you have a pile of guys that all do the same thing. Like you need to put yourself in a position to mix it up a little.
Yeah, a lot of people I see on Twitter are saying, put Harper in right field and trade Castellanos and then re-sign Reese. That's all well and good, but Castellanos still has like $60 million left on his deal. Not going to get a huge haul back in terms of trade value there. So,
as much crap as people want to give him, he played really well defensively.
Yeah, exactly. I think so much of it is spur of the moment and people just thinking like, oh, I like Reese. I don't want that to be the way Reese's career as a Philly ends. And unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast, right? It's what the game is. It's a business as much as it is. Yeah, you grow attached to these players, but it is what it is.
I think a lot of people let their emotions get tied into it, right? They know how important he was in this franchise over the course of the run last year, right? It has the epic bat spike, so a lot of people are tied to that emotionally. But you can't let the things of the past play into how you plan for the future. You've got to be able, if you're going to build this roster to get back to this point, to play for a pennant next year. I don't think that he's a part of it. I don't think that that's something that he gets to, he'll move on, and no ill will. But listen, we've got a lot of time in the off season to, we'll have, I'm sure at some point we'll reconvene for some hot stove.
Yeah, absolutely. That arbitration stuff. There's plenty.
I was going to say,
off season's always cooking. So
you're going to have some arbitration eligible guys. We'll talk at some point. We'll talk about Jeff Hoffman, Ranger Suarez, Gregory Soto, Jake Cave, Edmundo Sosa, Bohm, Stubbs, and Covey are all guys that are they're arbitration eligible guys. I'm sure that some of those guys will get non-tendered. Some of those guys will get some kind of settlement with the team and come back on arbitration deals. But there's a lot to be excited about. This one fucking hurts. It just hurts. Yeah. It hurts real bad. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. You're right. It hurts, but and I think the biggest thing is that the World Series, that first pitch is in 2.5 hours. So I'm still gonna watch it. I'm still gonna watch the World Series probably. I just love baseball so much. It is what it is. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna sting. But February isn't realistically all that far away. I'm really looking forward to see what they do this offseason because the team is still really good. That's what I think everyone just needs to keep telling themselves, right? It's one down year, or not even a down year. It was a good year, but there's a down series, I guess, and there's a chance they could be right back here next year. As much as I don't like the guy, Howard Eskin made a good point in the beginning of the season. He said that it's really hard to make the World Series 2 years in a row. They're better off. They're more likely to win it in 2024 or 2025. And I tended to agree with him at the time. And I'm like, wow, that is true. It's really hard to do it. And I think I'm actually still agreeing with him. I think that might be the first time I've ever agreed with Eskin on anything. But it's one of those things where looking back, all they're going to do this offseason is make their club better. And if they were one win away this year, that by doing that, that's all that might be all they need. So it's again, it just sucks that it's so long. It sucks that we have to wait another year to be in this exact position, hopefully. But that's so is baseball.
Yeah, it's this is just not a fun spot to be in, but I think it's going to sting, right? We got a lot of time to let stuff digest that off season, to see how the roster gets reconstructed, to see the team that they're going to bring to Clearwater. It's going to be similar. There's not going to be a lot of changes. You're going to see a lot of changes on the fringes. But Eric, I'm on the opposite end. I love baseball, but the Rangers Diamondback series is like a matchup for me. And I really think that, the way that the Rangers are playing and the way that the guy that they got hitting in the middle of that lineup, who's just crushing monster shots, like at bat after at bat. But, to me, it's just too close. It stings a little bit too much. I'll probably check in on it, but I won't be like dialed into it.
I'm not gonna be like I would for the Phillies, but
no,
especially like tonight going out to dinner. If I get home in time, I'll flip it on and watch the end.
Right.
So
no, I hear you. Listen, my final thought. Shout out to the guys at the Fired Up Sports Network. I successfully managed to last long enough to end the survivor pool. So I got to give a shout out to Mike and Dom and Chris. They sent over the new logo T-shirt, which is a great thing for the network. So you'll go over there, check out the merch, and go check out the stuff that they got. Just really happy to be a part of a network that kind of focuses on just covering local stuff really well. So with that, Eric, it was the funeral was well, it's going to end. It was successful in terms of putting a bow on this season. So with that, Eric, we'll touch base over the summer. Jesus Christ, touch base over the winter. A little hot stove action. We'll reconvene at some point. But go Phils.
Till then, go Phils.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.